Hi, this is Sean Murphy of SK Murphy. I'll be the MC for today's PATCA webinar. PATCA is the Professional and Technical Consultants Association. Learn more at patca.org. The best way to get started is to join as an associate member for $50. See the PATCA join. You can also contact me at skmurphy@skmurphy.com if you have questions. Please use chat for the questions during the talk, and we will also have a Q&A session at the end. We're fortunate today to have a briefing on From Data to the Light, products that speak to both algorithms and humans. Swathi Annamalai is the head of data science at Flight. Swathi.
Okay, so the floor is mine, I take it. Hi, guys. Good morning, good afternoon if you guys are in the East Coast. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I'm going to start with good morning. And yes, I am excited to be here, excited to share more about my experiences in data, product buildings that delight customers, and algorithms that speak to both humans and products. So let's get right into it. And I'm just Okay, there you go. So I'm going to go really quick through my agenda items. I hope to definitely give a lot of time towards the end for Q&A, and I'm happy to take questions as you guys put it in chat if it's not a long-winded question, but I'm happy to get started. All right. So a little bit about me. Thanks, Sean, for the introduction, but I'll go really quick. So I've spent over 15 years in the industry across a multitude of industries. Primarily started my role as a data engineer post my master's. And I have been in full stack data all my life. And then that transitioned into being a product builder across various communities and industries. On a personal note, I am a mom. I have a 4-year-old and 2 dogs, so that's a lot of energy. And what keeps me helps me keep up with the energy is I'm a gym rat. I do a lot of different kinds of workout because movement is my meditation. And I listen to a lot of data podcasts and product podcasts while working out, so it keeps me going. So let's get right into it. I like to start out with my example or my journey in my data career, where I started my role as a data engineer and a data scientist in crime analytics. This was in upstate New York in Albany PD. And it was a wonderful experience that I like to highlight because I think it's unique. I don't think I'm going to have such an exciting experience where I used data to solve crime. That is what I really did. We had a lot of various data systems, data sources, and it was about ingesting and putting that together in a platform that made sense, providing data back to detectives and crime analysts to help solve crime. That is what I did. And that was a very meaningful role, which reinforced my belief in data, and that data does have answers to a lot of what we think we don't. But it is about doing it the right way, ingesting it the right way. It's about the structure, the transformations, and you name it. So, but along with the data, it's also a combination of human intuition. And you're going to hear me speak about human intuition over and over again across all my slides, because it is about bringing meaning to the data that we extract value from and doing something meaningful out of that, right? It can be a business decision. In this case, it was about solving crime, and it was also about protecting and not misleading the outcome, right? That was very critical because algorithms, especially this was like what, 16 years back when I did this role, we had minimal data sources. IoT was probably just beginning to be a thing, but we didn't have enough data sources. We did not have the cloud transformations like how we did today. We did not have the speed. So it was all manual, but there was a lot of human instinct and judgment that we had to use to complement the data outcomes and to effectively utilize that so that we are not going after a community just because of partiality and bias in the data. As simple as that. And that was the differentiator. So the other complementary role that I like to talk about as an example is a retail. It's the cost plus world market. I'm sure some of us have shopped there. It was about using data science and machine learning algorithms to reduce marketing spend in a good way and optimize the spend. So I know a lot of marketing leaders did not like that. They don't like data scientists where we are reducing the marketing spend, but at the same time, we were optimizing the campaign outcome and we were going after the right members with the right messaging and the right positioning. So all of this, if you see 360, what I'm trying to, my key takeaway from this slide is we start with the data, but it is about building the products. It is about the outcome using the data, but it is using human judgment and intuition in the mix to help. So we typically talk about the framework of people, process, technology. I like to say it as data, product, and people. That's the framework that I would emphasize using as we go. And just the highlight here is insight without impact is just noise. And you're going to hear me speak as we traverse through my next slides. So continuing my journey from data to product and people, I like to highlight my example, my role at Patelco Credit Union. So this is one of the biggest credit unions in the Bay Area. And I think it was 150 years old of date, 150 years old, and we had very historical data, siloed interfaces, legacy data systems which did not talk to each other, right? And everyone was excited when they said, "Oh, you know what, Swat? Let's start doing data science and machine learning on our rich data sets, right?" Yeah, great, we can do all that, but then the data needs to be in that format, one, to make sense out of it, to analyze that, to be able to do exploratory machine learning and data sources, and being able to even do like feature engineering, basic things to understand what is moving user engagement. So at Patelco Credit Union, we had two product lines. Actually, I should say three. So we had the offline banks, we had the regional banks, and then we had our app and we had our website. So you had foot traffic across different sources. And it was hard enough to measure what was the foot traffic at a bank location and what the conversions were like, unless and until we got the data from our staff. Versus at app and website, we had some amount of tracking, but it wasn't great. So we had to get better at that to understand user behavior, user navigation across the website versus the app. We might go, if you don't have the right data and we don't make the right decision using data, we might go forward and say, you know what, I want to do this website overhaul. And that's what Patelco is going to do. They said they were going to do this website overhaul and we're going to make fancy buttons and X, Y, and Z pages when those X, Y, and Z pages were not even being used by customers, right? By members. They were not even looking at it. So why spend that effort to make fancy buttons and do the redesign and spend all the resources doing that when you can actually reallocate resources to do something more meaningful that actually drives user behavior?
Regina, please have the circulation office.
Sorry? I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
My audio is not off, sorry.
Okay, there was no question there. Okay.
So, sorry, Swathi, there's no question.
Okay, thank you. I'll keep going. Yeah. So this is where we changed the way we approached our website redesign and app redesign. And it was about anchoring a lot of disparate sources to build that unified foundation. It takes time to go after these legacy systems and to find how it talks to each other. We were also doing a lot of static campaigns through emails. So suppose, say you got an email from Patelco Credit Union. It was done through a very cumbersome, complex manual process of putting the emailing list together. And then you would get like a static campaign, which probably did not even make sense. You may not require a car loan. You might not require a home loan. But there was this list of members we went after, and we would send a static campaign to everyone saying, home loan rates are so and so, and this is what you would get, right? But it was about changing and making it more customized and personalized. So only if you need a home loan, but you already had an existing home loan, but probably you needed a HELOC, or maybe you needed a refinance, we made it personalized based on data at every individual member level. And we changed that to making it more data-informed engagement for our members.
So you're gathering information in service of making some decisions. What were the revenue, or were you trying to drive revenue or cut cost?
We were trying to cut cost and increase revenue. It was a twofold approach, but it was mainly to reduce the marketing spend and optimize our campaign spend.
And so roughly how much was spent on your team?
So I think we used to typically spend on marketing campaigns on a quarterly basis.
No, I mean, you're the data team. How much
Yeah.
was the company investing in gathering the data?
Oh, in gathering the data, you can say it was anywhere between 1 to 1.5 million. Just
Okay.
for
And what was the return on investment? So you would come to them and you would say, okay, we're gonna do this analysis. You'd come
yes,
back to them with findings. What
yes.
was the how did those findings turn into either additional revenue or cost savings? What was the ROI on that 1.5 million?
Yep. So it was an incremental revenue that we had again, and it started with like 200, 300K, and it incrementally increased a little bit at a time. I think within 1 year, we were at an ROI of 1.2 million. Yeah.
So they were spending 1.5 million in the year to make 1.2 million?
But then the data sources were being used across other functions. It was not just for marketing. So that was the other incremental value that we had because the same data sources were feeding for other projects.
And did you calculate a total ROI on what
That
was
will be
being
much
invested?
higher. That ROI will be at least 5 or 6 million if you bring in for the entire company. Yeah.
Okay.
As a result of the 1.5 million engagement that we had. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it is crucial that you build an ecosystem that talks to each other, which is automated. You don't automatically build automated communication overnight. It has to happen with the process, right? And it was about building meaningful connections with our members because we connected and the trust factor went up a little bit more incrementally again over a period of time because we were not doing a spray and pray approach. That is what marketing typically did, but we did a more intelligent marketing approach, and that is what changed. So some of the guiding principles I like to talk about as the pillars of what data decisioning should be about. And this is where data and delight start coming together. So it's going to be about not just the data, and it's also about the people and the human intuition, right? It emphasizes a balance between the data analysis and the human understanding. When you start off the data analysis process, say even for marketing, right? And you're understanding where our members are coming from, what kind of offers they're looking at, what is the ROI, what is the conversion? You cannot just tailor all of your outcome based on this is the data analysis, this is my predictive approach, and this is what the outcome is going to be. It is about mixing in the human approach of, hey, you know what, the call center people or the Patelco Credit Union location, the bank location staff talk to members and they understand this is their struggling places, right? So there's always a mixing of offers or a balancing of offers that we started to do in order to balance the human data analysis and the human understanding. It has to be a mix of both. And empathy in design, I like to talk about this because this is what products is. It's about building products that is sticky, that makes sense to your customers. So you don't want to do an app refresh just for the sake of spending 5 million on the app refresh, right? You want to be mindful about which components and features are being used, which can be made better, where users actually engage a lot of time and where the conversion rates are potentially higher. Those are the kind of structured areas that you can actually spend your money towards, and you should be prioritizing. So empathy in design is about actually empathy for the customers. If you don't, like Steve Jobs always talks about Apple being customer centric. It is. That's why they build the best products, because it talks to customers, right? And that is what we started to keep in mind at Patelco or even my other companies where we were doing. It was about empathy in design. Otherwise, your products are not going to stick and the customers don't really care about coming back. There's no recurring revenue at that point. And then there's also clarity. Clarity is just a strategy, right? You need to be clear about what you're giving to your customers. You cannot have a complex product. And it's not about building dashboards, say for your business stakeholders, like week after week and overloading them with dashboards, which has KPIs and metrics. And it doesn't probably make sense. It's a lot of duplication going on. And you are saying that you're putting data at the hands of your stakeholders. That's not true. You're just confusing your stakeholders even more. So you need to be clear about what you're giving, and the way the data is being presented to your business stakeholders. It is very important that we do that. So it's a little bit of a midpoint before I go into my individual case studies, which I think will be a little bit interesting because it's practical on what I did. But I just want to leave pause here. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take, and then we can go on with these two quotes. But it's basically, I always tell everyone, my leaders or my teams in the industry, be value driven. It's not about being data driven, because it's garbage in, garbage out. If you don't know what you're feeding into your machine learning algorithms, just for the sake of taking all the 1,000 data sources that you have and you say you're going to make the best predictive models, you're not necessarily going to get the best result. So it's about being value driven. And that is where the human intuition also comes in place. Yeah. So I want to pause here for a couple of minutes, Sean, if there's any questions purring up in the Q&A or anything else, or I can keep going.
So I think this is really good. We haven't had folks add questions right now. I guess my question is, do you try and calculate the value of perfect information? In other words, what's the maximum benefit you could gain if you had perfect information?
So the definition of perfect information depends on what is the business outcome. What's the perfect business outcome, right? And perfect information, there's nothing called as perfect information. I don't consider that exists. There's nothing called as perfect data.
You're familiar with the term, the expected value of perfect information?
There's a
It's
expected
a
value.
term, it's a term of art, right? So do
Yeah,
you ever
yeah.
calculate that?
It's more of what is the value of the outcome is what we calculate. Like, where are we going to go with this? What is the strategic driver or
Okay.
metric that all of the data sources and this analysis is going to give you? And what is it going to move the needle? Is it going to be ARR? Is it going to be ROI? Is it going to be ROAS? Are we going to reduce the ROAS as a result of this analysis or this predictive analytics project, right? And what are we doing to reduce the marketing ROI in this one, right? Increase the marketing ROI, reduce the marketing ROAS. That's the kind of perfect value driven conversations we try to have. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So should I keep going?
Please.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. So case study 1, I'll go back to my credit union example where I was overseeing the data science and digital product strategy team. So the challenge we had was, and credit unions are different from banks, right? We are about the members and doing what's financially right for the members. We are going to have a lot of struggling and underserved members, right? And we want to make sure that we do not talk like a bank. We are no Chase, we are no BOA, but we are about doing what's right for our members, right? That's the credit union. So what was happening as a result of our disparate and siloed data sources was there was no complete information, right? Or there was no complete data set that was going into feed our, say, email marketing systems, for example. We were sending email offers, one, that was static. Second, we were not getting to all the members who really needed the help. So suppose, say, we were doing a refinancing offer, right? And we were able to customize it. The challenge we were running into is we were not able to reach all of the members in our database who were financially challenged because they were misses. We were not getting a complete data set. And that was mainly the problem was because we did not have a holistic data ecosystem. We had fragmented data sources, and probably there were members who were there with us for over 50 years. But somehow, because of our segmentation around age and demographics, there were biases being created, and those members were left out in our marketing emails, right? When they were the ones who probably needed to see our offer and come have a conversation with our staff and say, hey, I need to do refinancing for my house. It is a 30-year loan, but I've done it for like 22 years. Can I get a better rate, right? After 22 years, those kinds of things. So what we changed at Patelco, and that is why I quote here, is data wasn't just a KPI tracker. Traditionally, data is about KPIs and metrics and measurements. It doesn't have to be only about that. It has to be about delight. It is about voice for customers. It is, in this case, going for members, identifying members who really needed the offers, or maybe it was not a refinancing offer, but something else. Maybe it was a financial tool. Maybe it was to have a conversation with a different loan officer, right? It was not about selling a product of Patelco Credit Union, but it was about helping members who were financially challenged, who probably could not pay their mortgages after 6 months because COVID had hit. Those kinds of things. So that is where the value-driven conversations using data started to come into Patelco. So what did we do to solve for this challenge? Obviously, we built the next generation Snowflake data platform. We were on siloed, fragmented data sources, everything coming together. Salesforce Marketing Cloud was one of the most powerful tools that we implemented. It wasn't easy to implement. That is where my product management hat sits in. And we had to make sure we are touching the marketing cloud, Salesforce Marketing Cloud system against all of the underlying data sources where we had member data, demographic, behavioral data, engagement data. It was a holistic 360 behavioral data ecosystem that we tried to create. And it wasn't static around these are the members, this is their address, this is their demographic, this is their age, this is their, financially coping, or those kind of marketing segmentation. That is static data attributes. It was about creating a universal user engagement driven ecosystem. And particularly, we used a lot of behavioral analytics to understand why members are struggling, what were the different sources, were they going more into the bank, were they calling our call center more, were they using our app, because older population were not probably familiar with our apps, they didn't know how to navigate, but app had a lot of tools to help them navigate, but that is totally useless because we are not able to get to those members to help them with the app, right? But they were going more to our call centers or our staff, so we had to retrain our staff to have those mindful conversations of how to get them to be not as struggling and what kind of tools we should be providing them. We also designed like a machine learning driven approach to personalize offers and rebuild trust. That was through emails and many other sources. So the impact, it goes back to, we had a 1.2 million quarterly savings. That was the ROI. We had an increased engagement, and data became pretty much integral to our culture in decision making. What changed and the lessons we took away was empathy. That was a big part of what we did in our inclusion models. We humanized data, not just optimized it. That was a differentiation, right? And data governance. I like to call this out, and I'll close the slide with this last part, right? Data governance. So when I went to the C-level at Patelco, I went to probably 6 of them, and I asked them, what is the definition of an active member? All 6 of them had 6 different definitions. Now imagine if you queried 6 different ways, you got 6 different result sets of members who are active members at Patelco Credit Union. That is not right. That is basic, which we should have gotten right. But that is what lacked. Those were some of the basic components that lacked in our system. And that's why data governance became even more crucial. We have a unified definition of what an active member means. So next I'll go to Mind. Now this is a startup and it's a totally different model. That's why I like to talk about Mind quickly. Mind was a proptech. It was a very fast-paced proptech. I was there for about 2 years, right? And we help you find single-family homes for rental purposes. Everything can be done through our product, through our app or our website. You don't have to go look at homes. If you want to buy in Austin, Texas, you don't have to go talk to property managers, real estate managers, nothing in person. Everything can be done virtually, remotely. That was our 360-degree encompassing model that we built for real estate investors. And there were institutional investors too that we had who came in to buy homes. And we were real estate agents for them. We were property managers for them. We helped them buy loan if they needed to buy for the house. We helped them sell the property. We took care of renters' experiences. We took care of owner experiences. We had both, right? So what did we do? Again, the first bullet point is similar to Patelco. We built a modern data platform, ingesting, obviously, in real estate data. I'm not going to say it's more complex than financial data sources, but it's complex in its own way and it's messy. Operational data is pretty messy in real estate, right? So it is about getting the listings like, the MLS data listings, and then financial and operational and customer data, all of this data, pulling it together, building that in a one cohesive ecosystem, data ecosystem, developing predictive models, rental yield. I like to call out rental yield because you as an owner, when you're buying a house for rental purposes through us, you would like to know what is your ROI over a period of time? How much return on investment are you getting over a period of time? If you hold the house for 10 years versus 20 years versus 30 years, and if you sell the house after 12 years, what is your return going to be like? Those projections, prediction on that, maintenance risk. You're going to have a house. You plan to hold it for 20 years. What is the maintenance you're going to be spending? What does that look like? How much money you have to output, right? How much are you yielding? And then the tenant churn. There are going to be people who are going to be leaving. What is the possibility of renters renewing the lease versus not renewing? Your house is vacant for a while. How much income are you losing on that? All of that involved developing predictive models. And that's what we did to help inform our customers that this is what they are invested in if they buy a house through us, right? And this is what the return is going to be.
So 2 questions. One, what was the business model? When you talk about customers, was it a real estate brokerage? Was it a property management fee? How was the company making money?
Oh, yeah. So we were making money through the monthly fee. We are not brokers. We are not property managers. We were all-inclusive partners to help you own your house, rent your house, maintain your house. So we were property managers, we were brokers, we were everything together. And that
So
was
would you so the monthly fee included actually acquiring the property?
yes, it did.
And
Everything.
then it acquired what a property management firm would do as well?
Yes, exactly. That was our
And it was all just a monthly fee. There was no
monthly.
transactions.
Yes, we had different subscription models. So if you just wanted to help you buy the house, it was one fee, right? Until you buy the house on a monthly basis. If you wanted us to be also your property managers after buying the house, it was a different subscription fee. And then if you wanted us to also do flipper uppers, right? If you needed us to do maintenance work and we should go find the maintenance, operational people, that was an additional subscription. So that was a different model again. So that is where the tiered subscription came in, and we charged higher. The more services you needed from us, the higher the subscription fee went. That was our model. And then, so obviously the impact, this was a big impact. So obviously ARR was it was the thick metric, it's a primary metric that we go after in startups. When I started, we were at 60 million. So all of these operations and changes and data decisions, everything fostered towards bringing us to 100 million ARR within 10 months of I starting this. And it was a newer data team that we started. We were 5 people, we went up to 20. And it was an aggressive growth because startups are about aggressive growth, otherwise we don't get returns, right? But it was also about a lot of burn rate. We were spending a lot of money to grow across all the markets. We were in pilot markets. We went to larger markets in the entire United States. So the burn rate was pretty high. And yeah.
So we had a question. So I guess the question is, if you're not offering a tour of the house,
Yep.
did that since there's no human touch, it's just virtual reality,
Mhm.
did that inform the kind of customers you were attracting?
That's a very good question. And I think, yes, that did attract a specific kind of customers because there are people who want to go and see the house in person. And then there are people who are just investors, right? And they don't have time to fly into Austin, Texas from San Francisco Bay Area, but they have 500K of cash lying around in their bonuses and they want to go buy a house because Austin is a great market. So yes, there was a specific kind of demographics we were attracting, and we were not going to attract certain kind of people no matter what, right?
So this was primarily then investors who were.
Yes,
This
it
was
was
investors.
Yes, it was. It's not for home ownership. It was for investors. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, lessons learned. I'll talk about the dice loop a little bit because I think this is a reusable framework, which maybe some of you already know about or can use it in your day-to-day. I call it as data, insight, creation, and experimentation. This is basically the 4 stages. It starts with data, but you don't know if it's going to work, right? And you have to test it against various business decisions and outcomes. So it's like creation in my marketing example at Patelco. These are the various campaigns and the positioning and the messaging of the campaigns that we play around with. We custom created 16 cross 4, it was like a matrix we used. And then we experimented across our product lines and across our people and members, who were getting emailed. So it's a constant loop, but you need to also know when to stop, right? Like depending on the outcome and what is acceptable. And as a result, at Mind, obviously, data was ingrained in the DNA. It changed a lot the way we built products. It was data informed. Yeah. And this one, I like to talk about DirecTV. It's a name that is known, right? It was a brief consulting gig I did this summer for about 3 months, and I was actually the product lead there for billing and payments. So the biggest issue we had, so DirecTV has 2 kind of customers: stream and satellite. The stream customers had a lot more issues in just updating their credit card payments. So the payment failures rate was 20% higher for stream billing customers compared to satellite billing customers. So something was really going wrong in the entire loop. We had like different payment gateways. They had a more historical and archaic system. They were more constrained in the kind of payment types they were taking. They were not taking all kinds of credit cards. They were not taking ACH bank payments. They had a lot more constricted kind of an ecosystem for stream billing customers, right? But the failure rate was much higher. It was a redesign they just did 6 months back, and the redesign technically was not working. So we needed to know what was not working in this payment failure, right? In this entire process flow, workflow. And that in the data and the design, the way I would go back to telling them is honesty is the most scalable feature. It sounds philosophical, but you need to be honest about what's not working. And everybody is not honest about what's not working in their workflow. Trust me. That's how companies are, right? That's a hard fact. So I like to call out certain tools that I use just to give this story a little different angle compared to my previous two stories. I use some product tools. Dynatrace was more system logs, okay, where the payment failures were actually happening and what were the kind of payment failures, system logs. Quantometric were a very, very useful tool, very powerful tool. So suppose you are Sean, you're a customer, right? And you're trying to update your payment methods in DirecTV, all right? And you're a stream billing customer. So I would look at your session when you go in from the time you log in to DirecTV, and you're trying to update your payment method. And every time you're failing, the message you're seeing, you're going in a loop, you are traversing through the website, you're scrolling through, and you're struggling for 1.5 hours. I had access to the sessions to see what was happening, what were you doing, where were you struggling, where were you trying to update your payment method, what was your credit card number. Of course, we had the PII information, everything taken out. I wouldn't know it's exactly you. I had a user ID that I would kind of like, traverse to, map it to, but that's the user behavior engagement sessions. I was able to see where people struggled, and it was painful to see customers struggling to update their credit card for 1.5 hours and still failing to do that. And then they would make a customer care call and say, hey, I'm not able to update my credit card, right? And that's an extra expense that is going to the customer care. It was like anywhere between $150 to $300 per customer care agent call that they were spending on. That's a lot of money, So 20% failure rate was monumentally high, which we had to bring it down. And I did some competitive analysis around how simple the digital payment infrastructure was for Netflix, Hulu, YouTube TV, Prime Video, right? So there was a lot of learnings that definitely we could make it better, ease of use of cards, change the payment gateways if we can. You cannot do it overnight. We have our constraints, but there's things to make it better. And then the impact was we piloted in a pilot segment. I was there only for 3 months. So hopefully it's still successful, the process flow that I put in place, but the success rate did go up by 11%, meaning the payment failure rates actually came down within a specific pilot segment. So this was huge. And we did see the customer care calls go down also. They were simple billing errors when people were trying to put in their address and the billing validations were not matched. The payment gateways were not matching the name, caps case, all those kinds of things. There were simple rule casings that changed, which actually brought down a lot of these billing errors. There's still more errors that they need to work on, and the payment gateway decisioning engine needs to be more up to date with that. But yeah, that's some of the learnings. And org changes wise, again, this was like a framework that goes back to the dice loop. Basically the process was problem discovery. What were the insights? I went dial it down step by step, redesign. What does the redesign look like? And then how do we reestablish trust with our customers? Because we are failing with our customers just on payment updates, right? That's just not fair to the customers. And any questions so far? I can pause before going to my last case study.
We have a long one about Patelco that I'm going to hold to the Q&A.
Okay, we can hold to the Q&A. That's fine.
No. I'm just saying there's one that's come in, but it's long, so I'm going to hold to the end.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you. And then finally, my current place where I am at, it's Flight with the Y. And I like to put it as where data, empathy, and innovation takes off. So this is a problem that all of us in this room are going to be able to share and have empathy with. We are never informed of flight delays enough ahead of time. Either you're at the gate, either you're in the flight, or you are on your way to the airport, or you're at the airport, right? Most of the time. And you're stuck with the delays. Now, what we are trying to envision a future for us is a delayless departure, right? It's basically we want to inform passengers like you and me, including me. I don't like to travel with my 4-year-old and be stuck at the airport for 4 hours waiting around, and maybe the flight gets canceled. I don't want to do that. Nobody wants to do that. But rather, we build an AI-driven platform, and that's what we are doing at Flight right now. We are building the platform. It is about building the data ecosystem, the right prediction models, to be able to inform US passengers 5 days before, 4 days before, 3 days before your departure. Your flight is going to be on time. Your flight is going to be delayed. We know there's a storm system. Today we have a storm system over San Francisco. Yeah, there's a lot of delays that are going on in the flights. Plus, added to the TSA and the government shutdown, there's a lot of data points that we are gathering to help predict these flight delays and add these notifications to your wallet, to your app, right? And inform you your flight is going to be delayed with an 85% probability, which means what? You change your flight, ideally, because no matter which airlines you change to, it's going to be delayed. You don't want to deal with delays. Maybe you need to be traveling on Monday. You don't want to be traveling on Saturday. Your flight is going to be delayed. Your flight is likely going to be canceled. This is the purpose of what we are doing with data at Flight. It's a lot of metrics that we are connecting back to improving all of our experiences while traveling because we want to make that better. There is no one-stop shop product right now that exists to do both, informing you of travel delays and giving you an option to rebook in the same product. There's no one-stop shop. It's fragmented. There are silos of products that we have. Airlines can likely do it, but they don't do it, right? They don't have the customer empathy to inform us ahead of time and say, your flight is going to be delayed. You should rebook, and they're not going to inform you 2 days ahead. It's also about design choices again. So design and empathy kind of go hand in hand, the way I like to say. Product, right? We are designing a product that is simple enough to put it in your hands. We are not going to complicate it. We would just want to give you alerts and notifications, and you're going to be on your way, right? And you decide what to do for your travel. That's the way we are doing it. And storytelling is another critical underlying concept or underlying skill, I should say. Between data and product, it's always good to have storytelling because people remember stories. They don't remember technical insights as much. So translating insights into a reasonable narrative is something that we are doing here day in, day out from a customer perspective. We have gone out to customers asking what they like, what they would like to see in a product. We are doing our customer surveys. We are doing qualitative as well as quantitative research as we build this product at Flight right now. And then it is about the data-informed, human-centered approach, which we want to turn chaos into confidence at scale. So this is my last slide. I'll stop talking and then we have enough time for questions. So bringing it full circle, data to delight. It is combining AI with human judgment, right? Like even ChatGPT, for example, you use chat. If it doesn't have enough background, it doesn't have the right questions, it doesn't comb through the right resources, it's going to hallucinate. You cannot trust AI by itself. No matter how much my chat knows about me, my profile, my job, my companies, it still makes mistakes, right? And it is the human judgment. It is me who uses chat as my personal assistant and guiding it to give me the right answer or give me a better professional sentence if I want to write a different email. At Flight, we are applying these principles day in, day out. I work with my founder and my team, leading a 0 to 1 product development. That's what we are doing. We are building something that does not exist ground up, right? And it is an AI-driven travel platform for investor strategy and user research, using a lot of user research. Lessons, of course, I worked in a multitude of industries, fintech, proptech, media, you name it, like DirecTV. The future of future of product is not dashboards. I think hopefully the concept of dashboards is going away with interactive dashboard and a custom built dashboard coming in with the AI tools. So I remember the painful times when I used to build static dashboards and my business partners would be like, you know what, I need more KPIs, I need more metrics, and they still don't know what to do with it, right? That's a wasted effort on all of us. Key takeaways, I just put it out there, but I'll just highlight this one thing, right? Collect to understand and not justify. Basically, people, especially business and C-level or CEOs, you're always going to work with people who now even jump more on data and say, AI needs data. It's all about data. Data is king. I get it, data is king, but you should really understand what you're looking at. What is the data sources that you're trying to use in order to achieve X, Y, and Z business outcomes? You don't collect data just for the sake of collecting data, and you don't sit on it. You're curating that. You're spending resources. You have data engineers sitting and transforming the data for no reason if you don't use it, right? And it's not that all data is best data. It has to be curated towards what the business outcome has to be. So it's very important, right? And go back to your teams and ask not just what does the data say, but what does it serve? It goes back to serving the members, like at Patelco Credit Union. At Mind, it goes back to serving our customers, the owners and the residents, and building an experience that makes sense for them, right? At Flight, it is about building a product that makes sense for people like you and me. What do you want to see? When do you want to be informed of your travel disruptions? What do you do if there's a travel disruption? Those kinds of things. Those are the experiences. And then finally, I think, yeah, I've talked a lot about data, but the future of product basically belongs to those who, that's the human empathy. That's the delight portion, data to delight, right? And it is, you speak both the language of data and the people. It's going to be a balance that you need to strike. And yeah, that's it for this long presentation from me today. Yeah.
This has been really good. We've had a number of questions come in. The first
Right.
one goes back to your Patelco
I'm back there.
portion. You don't have to flash back, but you
Okay.
said that there were 6 different definitions they had of active member.
Yes.
Could you share what those were?
Yeah, so active members. One of them said active members who have engaged with us across one of the product lines. It can be either the location or app or website in the last 1 year. One of them said who has been active with us and who has reached out to us in the last 5 years. But they never said it should be a call center or something, right? That was vague again. And then one of them said who have made at least 3 engagements with us in the last 1 year. So I don't remember the other 3. I'm sorry, but these 3 kind of like stay at the top of my head. But as you can see, all 3 definitions are different.
But,
And your
but
queries
this
are-
is for a credit union, right?
yes, credit union. Yes.
So would they have money on deposit? Would that be part of the definition?
It is. It is. They have, well, that was the funny part. They had just an open account, some of them, and they were an active member. But they had an open account. Plus, they reached out to us in the last like 1 year, 3 years. But then you need to know, what did they reach out for? If they did not convert on a financial product, are they really active? It's more like a dormant account. Like that was the kind of debate and discussions we got into. Because what are the benefits we were trying to give to our active members? What kind of email communications or member communications we were trying to give to our active members versus dormant members? How do we resurrect them? How do we bring them back to becoming active? So we had to identify the difference between the both.
So another question essentially is, what alternatives are people using now to flight to solve the problem? So one example is viewing the flight screen at the airport. Who or what are you benchmarking yourself against at flight?
So there's a few other products, but they don't do the same thing what we're trying to do. There's Flight Aware, which has like a misery map right now, and you can put in a flight that you're tracking, and it's going to tell you if it's on time or it's delayed, but it's more manual. It's not really providing any alerts. I don't think so. And then there's another product, Flighty, which I think gives something about flight delays. I'm not entirely sure, but it's not the same way what we are trying to build. So what we are trying to build is, or benchmarking, as you say, we are not competing against airlines industries. No, that's not us, because airlines are not building this, at least from what I know. But we are trying to build a product just for customers like you and me about informing about your travel. So you have an upcoming travel, you can put in an alert, you can put in your flight information, and it stays in our database. The moment we start getting notifications if your flight is going to be on time or delayed, that is what we are informing you. We are going to send you alerts for that. And the second phase will be, if you know that you want to make a travel, but your flight is going to be delayed, we are going to give you recommended paths and recommended flights that you could possibly book on. That's the second part of where we're going towards.
Other questions for Swat? What was the hardest problem at DirecTV? What was the hardest aspect of that engagement? Biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge was working with engineering teams, because the engineering teams, either, I don't want to call them lazy, that's a rude thing to say, but they were slow. The pace at which they would, you wouldn't even get hold of them. I think that was one of the hardest aspects, right? And when we would do our analysis and say, okay, these are the problems, and each engineering team was responsible for the payment gateways. There were like 3 payment gateways in between the front end and the back end till the payment happens, till the payment systems. Each engineering team would not talk to each other when there were 3 payment gateway systems in between to make the payment happen. So it was getting all of them together, trying to agree whose problem it was, because there was blame game shifting happening. This engineering team would say it's not our problem, but this is the other team. The other team would say it's the third team, right? And then it's a loop that it would come back. So I think it's always the people challenge, which is the hardest. I think it's the technology is always you can make it work. That's not a big deal. Yeah. That's what happened at DirecTV too.
Cool. Well, not cool. So that probably after the first iteration of non-performance, is that an engineering problem or is that a management problem?
I think I want to say a lot of things is management has to solve for issues and try to get their teams to work. It is on management, the responsibility. But I started to see there was probably at the higher level that management also was not agreeing with things. And maybe that was the root cause of the issues that we had, like payment gateways, right? Where was the error happening? Or this is irrelevant, this is going to change next year when we change our payment gateway engine. Those kinds of things. Yeah.
So we had a question come in
Yep.
that said, so somebody got the budget to charter you and your team to go in and start debugging this.
Yes.
What was the information that they looked at or the chart they looked at that enabled that, but then wouldn't take action as you dug in and provided
Yep.
better diagnostics? What do you,
So
how do you, what caused that gap, do you think? Why were they willing to pay you, but not
Yeah.
get the
Yeah.
engineers to fix it?
Yeah. So I was a part of the product team. That they were the ones who engaged me. So product is about fixing the problems that affect customers deeply, and this product team cared, which is a good thing, right? We cared for the
Yep.
customer.
Nope. Fully there.
But the engineering team was a different budget, a different leader, and a different manager. And both the leaders did not even report under the same C level, I think, that was going on. So there was a huge gap, even just top down, the way I would say it. Like if you would hear both the leaders speak, or when I presented, my closing presentation before leaving, the leaders agreed, but the engineering leader was more like, this is all good findings. Definitely there's worth it. We will investigate. Oh, the pilot project worked. We'll look into this. But you know what? We don't have bandwidth because we have all these other prioritized projects for 2025. We will prioritize this for 2026. So it was always like a delay mechanism being used. And the engineering leadership was not synced with the product leadership. Like it was a hassle for product to always go after it. Yeah.
Other questions for SWAT? Well, I want to thank you. This has been a very, very comprehensive view of what it takes to take data and actually get organizations to act on it. Let me, I apologize, I dropped the ball. Let me put this in the chat if you want to reach out to her. She can be reached at LinkedIn there.
Thank you for that.
And I think we're going to break here. Thanks everybody for coming, and thanks for a great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.